Warm up number 2, 360-degree breathing. We're keeping our lower rib cage down and closed, bringing the rib cage on a nice big exhale. Closer to each other, keeping our hands right on the ribs, the lower ribs here, so we can feel as we exhale, they move towards each other. Inhale without letting them open up more. Exhale, closing down more. Inhale without letting them. Noticing after a few breaths here, you start to feel that the low back opens up, chest, the area around the sternum opens up, the area on the ribs on the side open up, making sure that all these areas are moving because we're not over flaring the lower ribs. We're mobilizing the rest of the rib cage, which is really important, not only for internal health, not only for our breathing, but also for allowing muscles to work at their correct lengths, not chronically letting old stagnant air sit in our rib cage, influencing our pelvis. We can go one by one and say, open up the lower back with this one, open up the sides of the ribs, open up the corners of the chest or the sternum. You can go at whatever pace you want, or you can try to hit everything at once. I recommend slowing it down and really playing around with it. But 6 to 12 repetitions there is one. Fighting the ASIS, wrapping around the pelvis for our next one. We're going to place our hands at the groiny prominence right in the front of the hip here. Just lower my belly buttons here, just a little bit lower, and up right above the hip. Going into an anterior tilt. As we inhale, exhale, posterior tilt. Making sure that both of these ASIS, these bony landmarks, are moving at a similar rate of speed, and it's not one side that's doing all the work. We're finding a place where our low back is nice and off the ground, and then our low back is nice and pressed into the ground. By virtue of anterior and posterior tilting, opening up the low back. Alright, we're going to go into bottom leg, adduction, and scissor knee slides. So we're going to do that on one side, those two in tandem, and then we're going to move to the other side. I'm going to show on the wall first, and you're going to see a little bit more of the better angle as I do it on the other side, away from the wall afterwards. So slightly different angles, so you can see a couple details. Feet flat on the wall, even when I show off the wall in a second, to give you a better angle, still flat on the wall. We're going to have our knees, hips 90-90, raising the top knee, pushing it forward, further forward than the bottom knee, and then this hip pushes down towards the wall. So that'll lift your oblique, your love handle off the ground a little bit in order to find this position where we're just going to raise the bottom knee. It's going to be quite difficult. It should be, just for a second or two, dropping it back down, allowing the adductors to stabilize the pelvis in a way they do similarly to gait. And like you're raising your leg like an inch, but it is quite effortful. And then from there, you can do, 6 to 10 is enough there. We're going to go scissor knee slides, still feet on the wall. We're just going to let the knees slide forward and back, only moving the pelvis, nothing in the torso moving. Feet stay flat on the wall, opening up this small range of motion, the pelvis and low back. Same thing from this angle, you can see the knee is pressed forward, hip is down towards the camera, and we're just raising, without moving anything else, the lower leg an inch or two. You'll likely find this much easier on one side than the other. 6 or 7 will be enough. And then we'll go to scissor knee slides. You can do 15 or 20 of these, they're pretty easy. Again, torso's not moving, just the knees sliding back and forth in relation to each other. We call this the DeAndre stretch because there's a video on the internet of DeAndre Jordan doing it, which is super impressive at 7 feet tall. And it's just going to be a 90-90, but we're going to go into a pigeon, and we're gonna step through. One thing to make this easier before we go is if you have something under your butt, such as like pillows, such as one of those glue pads, or maybe 2 or 3 of those glue pads that you do for balance work that I saw in your gym, even a Bosu ball or something like that. This is gonna make it a little easier. Because we want to be able to move to a 90-90, from here, move up into a pigeon, and then step through and just move forward, opening up the hip flexor. I'll show from both angles in a second. You can step through. The first step is to do it with your hands on the ground, which is where I think I would expect most people to start. Stepping through and opening up the hip flexor. Eventually, I'm not using a yoga mat, so I'm not going to demonstrate this right now, but eventually you can work your way up to not putting your hands on the ground, just leaning into these positions, really exaggerating the stretch. Cross pattern step up, you can use a very low box. It doesn't have to even be parallel. We want to find 2 main positions. One is we're going to be at the bottom position here. Our elbow doesn't have to touch, but it should be in line roughly with our knee, because we're twisting through the torso, not just putting the arm across the body and doing some strange arm movements. This is to wind up the torso here. Coming up and finding the other side, again, twisting through the torso, slowly coming down, finding our position here. If you do this right, you will start to find this back corner of the glute, especially as you come down in a twisted position. It's going to start to feel like you really have to open it up. So it's pretty normal to not be able to do this in the parallel box at first, and then over time you build your way up to it. So from this side, you're going to see my knee stay straight ahead the whole time. From here, stepping up, coming down, kind of threading the bottom leg behind. Twisting the whole body. Captain Morgan hops. We're gonna have our hands on our head, foot out to the side, just like the Captain Morgan bottle. It's gonna put extra stress on the lateral line here. And all we're gonna do is first just hopping up and down, making an effort to maintain this position. It's gonna put a lot of extra stress on the foot, connecting the foot to the glute, keeping the free side of the pelvis nice and high. So we're not letting this drop, we're staying nice and strong. Through our base of support, one side will likely feel this to be quite a bit easier than the other. 10 to 15. As you get more used to this, you can do 10 in place, 10 lateral line hops on each side, and 10 forward and back line hops. Same deal. Quick off the ground, really maintain this lifted feeling through the pelvis, strong through the standing leg. T-cups are probably my favorite shoulder mobility exercise because they hit internal, external rotation, all in a smooth motion. Have something in your hand. I'm using my headphone case. It's not a big deal what it is. Just needs to make sure that your palm faces up the whole time. Piercing forward. Palm stays up as it circles around, circles back by the hip, and again comes forward. Circle, the circle never stops. And if I'm using my left hand, piercing forward, then the circle, if I looked at it from above, is going to be going in a counterclockwise motion the entire time. You can work the other side, circling in the opposite direction. So piercing across the body, opening up, continuing the circle around, circling back to the hip, and piercing again across the body. The hips should be nice and relaxed. We're not doing this as a martial arts drill, so it doesn't need to be super coordinated, but just relax so that they can move. And likewise, the spine can move a little bit. That's fine. We're opening up the ribs, the shoulders, the spine, all of it at the same time. We can do a reverse version of that where we're piercing to the back, circling around, to the back, circling around. Maybe it's easy to see sometimes to follow from behind, circle around, circle around. Same thing on the other side. Palm stays up.